Hey guys, welcome into the Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack. He is Frank. We are back again. NFL Week 15. The Bears are finally returning to action. So obviously we will be previewing the Philadelphia at Chicago Bears game. Luckily, they play on Sunday, unlike three other teams apparently who decided, you know what, let's play on Saturday this week. What the fuck is going on with the schedule, Frank? I'm very confused. I don't like it.
You texted me that earlier, and I made my picks and all, and I didn't realize that they were Saturday games. I literally didn't pay attention. I was just sort of making the picks. Didn't last year they start doing the Christmas Eve game?
But it's not Christmas Eve next week, though. That's why I'm confused.
Oh wait, you're right.
Yeah,
fuck.
That's.
No, I don't know then. I don't know why I thought December December
Christmas
breaks my
Eve.
brain because there's not much to do at work, so it's like. The days really start to feel the same, but I was like, yeah, maybe it's because it's New Year or Christmas Eve, but it's not. Yeah,
that's what I originally thought. I was like, oh, Christmas Eve, that makes sense because they do that. They did have those Saturday games, but they're just like, nah, fuck it, let's do it. So maybe they're testing out some stuff. That's just too much, though.
But
Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
I will say though, if they're testing anything out, I would hope that they're testing out Saturday games over Thursday games. Thursday games have got to go.
I agree. As someone who got 1 point out of Derek Carr because of it was a Thursday night game, I agree.
I mean, but it's like the product itself isn't
good. Yeah.
But this is my thing though. Like the ratings are always the NFL are the ratings kings. That's just what they do. They have the highest ratings in American sports. So, like, what would be the other kicker? Like, what is the kicker for it being Thursday? Because if you remember, I don't remember if we podcasted or if we just had a phone conversation at the time, but I remember telling you, and I'm not for one, anyone who knows me knows I'm not, like, one for tradition. Like, I don't really give two shits about a lot of stuff when it comes to things like that. But it did feel like it watered down the Thanksgiving game. So I still stand on that. But two, it's like these dudes are coming off fucking 2 days rest, 3 days rest. Like, what are we doing? You know, a Saturday game still gives you prime time, still leaves you on an island, and
yeah, but you can't really do that because of college football. I think it must have been like a research thing where they're like, all right, Wednesdays, you know, people are sitting down, they're watching basketball, right? That's the Wednesday on TNT. Even though I don't personally watch any NBA anymore, which I don't think I've watched more than like 2 games. Just no interest this year at all. Maybe I'll get there once NFL starts wrapping up a little bit. But just right now, I just and the Bulls suck. So who cares? You can't really do Friday. Most people are going out, right? Saturday, college football, like I said. So Thursday is probably just that sweet spot where it's like everyone's home. They're not going out. Nothing else is on Thursday, like you said.
Yeah.
It's gotta be that.
Why not do the Monday doubleheader?
I like that.
6 o'clock and a 9 o'clock.
I love the Monday doubleheader.
Or a 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, Thursday just fucking sucks, dude. Like half the time I forget it's even Thursday, and I look up and it's like 6:30, and then I get a sleeper at notification that's like the game day thread is on. I'm like, holy shit, I forgot. Fucking Russ is in prime time again.
Yeah.
Denver versus the Chargers for the 5th time on Thursday night.
This week's primetime matchups are a little rough, but obviously we'll get to that. What we wanted to start with, Frank, is something to continue our conversation from last week. We thought we could fit it into one episode and then going just a little longer than we thought in terms of the positives, which, you know, some Bears fans reacted positively to that, Frank, seeing us actually give some flowers to the team because it's just been it's been a rough season. A lot of discourse, obviously, but this week, not so much. This week will satisfy the other half that lives. Just getting into some of the more negatives, the things that were more disappointing about the year. And, you know, we'll kind of keep the same structure, Frank. I think we should start with the most important position being the quarterback. I mean, Frank, is there anything that you're disappointed in terms of Justin Fields in this season so far?
I mean, disappointing for the sake of what we're talking about and how we're going to dig into some people on this episode. For me, no. Again, but I and you've referenced this before when we've talked about things on the podcast. You have to go back and listen to our episodes about why the Bears are a playoff team and then why the Bears are going to suck in 2022. We sort of presented both cases and then sort of told you what we thought at the end of them, like what we thought the reality would be, and we sort of set a list out for Justin Fields because we liked the flashes from last year. And this year was like about more putting it together. Rookie year is always about flashes. If you have the flashes, that's something we can latch onto. But he still didn't prove that he was the guy. And we sort of set out of like, here's what we need to see to really buy in. Because I think for the most part, we were bought in, but I don't think we're ready to call him the guy after his rookie year. And he hit every one of those. And just like I said, what was it, last week or the week before, I want to get greedy now. Even with the weapons around him and the offensive line not, always being great, play calling being sketchy, and the defense being bad, part of me, because he sort of blew through those expectations, is like, give me a game-winning drive. You know what I mean? Like, give me a little bit more, because that's how fucking much he's blown past that. So, like, in terms of disappointment for me, there's nothing, man. I mean, again, like, and I said this last week too when we were talking about the positives. Anything that you feel like he can't do, like anyone listening to this, any fan that looks at Justin and says, well, he hasn't done this yet, he hasn't done that, look at all the other things you thought that he's done already. That's a track record of him, improving, of watching film, of bettering himself, of working with, whether it's Luke Getsy or the quarterback's coach or Eberflus, whoever is in there with him and helping him improve, he's done it. So that shows me, and that's not to say like, he's going to ever be a perfect passer or any, like, whatever, but he's shown the ability to improve on everything when it comes to being a quarterback. So in terms of the faith that I have in him, it's hard for me to be disappointed. Now, the conversation may look different next year when we surround him with better talent, hopefully. And if he doesn't take sort of that other step to like solidified top 10 status, then maybe some disappointment will arise. But as it stands, I mean, he's developed wonderfully.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I really don't know how you look at this season overall and be like, yeah, that was okay, but I wish he had done this. I don't know how you look at that and be disappointed in anything Justin Fields himself has done with the season. One thing we really were looking for was to cut back on the turnovers. He's really done that. Only one lost fumble. That's a huge decline from last year. He's got the 10 interceptions. I obviously love to see that kind of cut down a little bit more. But, I mean, when you really think about it, 10 interceptions in a full season really isn't that bad. But you do have to compare it to the amount of completions and attempts that he's throwing. So those numbers are important to keep in mind. But, yeah, like you said, like, even going off the Packers game, he didn't have the best game, but he threw for 254 yards. Like, that was his most all season. You're starting to see that evolution of him as a passer, right? The running is there. He's got almost 1,000 yards rushing. Like, that's crazy. 8 rushing touchdowns. It's been an insane run. I agree with you. I don't really see how you can look at anything he's done as a disappointment. He's answered the main question: can they build around you? Can they win with you? Not just because you're there. That's a huge question asked and answered. That can set the Bears up in a pretty good place in terms of if they're able to really sort of build things around him. You watched how Jalen Hurts improved, and you really do start to see a lot of similarities in those two types of players. I think, honestly, Justin might be the better prospect of the two. I think he might have the higher ceiling, which should be very exciting. But the Bears obviously need to start getting him some weapons, which I think Frank can kind of lead us into our next discussion. I think we'll start at the offensive line because that was just such a big question mark. I think we've talked about some obvious guys, but just we'll go left to right. And we don't have to talk about each one individually because I think that'll just take too long. But speaking of the main guys, so I'm talking Braxton Jones, Cody Whitehair, Lucas Patrick, and Sam Mustipher. I think those guys can be grouped together. Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borum. I'm not going to throw in Riley Reiff just because he was, a last-second signing. But of those main core offensive line guys, what were your main disappointments? Were you disappointed at all?
I mean, center was, Lucas Patrick had like 5 reps there before he finally got hurt. But honing in on him before we get to Mustipher, it's not like, I mean, Patrick was really bad at guard. And granted, like you said, he played the quarter or whatever at center, and he did look really good. Like it looked like an improvement over Mustipher. So it was like maybe chalking up those games at guard that he had as, he's just not a guard, and okay, he's a center. But then he gets hurt, and you're right back with Mustipher, and that leads you into Mustipher of like, how the hell is this guy even an NFL roster, dude? Like you can't like look at Riley Reiff being there. You can't tell me there wasn't another Riley Reiff, and I don't have the list of free agents at any point in the season or in the preseason or in the offseason, but there had to have been another serviceable starter. And what I mean is, like, I know people are going to be like, well, what do you mean they signed Lucas Patrick? That's fine. They got Lucas Patrick. Why is Mustipher on a roster is what I'm asking. Like, you sign another center or another interior lineman that can do that, or you just figure something, like you sign another guard, and when Lucas Patrick goes down, you have Cody Whitehair play center. Like, you just can't keep reeling that guy out there. Like, center, it would not shock me if, the Bears wind up, if they wind up with the second or third pick and someone trades up with them and they recoup another like fringe top 10 pick, and then they have something a little bit later in the first and they get a center in the first round. Like that would, because that position has just been bad. Larry Borom is another one, Jack, that, God, I mean, it sucked because he was our Braxton. I said this last week, like he was our Braxton Jones last year. Like, it was like, man, we got him a little bit later. He looks really good, and he was a left tackle last year as well. If everyone remembers the whole Tevin Jenkins scenario with the back and everything, and they were almost forced to play Borom at left, but he looked really good. And you're like, man, we're moving him to right now. Braxton looks good. Like maybe we just have our fucking franchise tackles in the form. What was Borom, a 4th round pick? I forget exactly where we took him. Fifth. I mean, so 2 5th rounders. So it was like, maybe we have something. He is just, and maybe he's just playing out of position. But it sucks because that's just a huge hole that, that remains with the steps back that he's taken. Other than that, to be honest with you, and then I'll throw it over to you or back to you, Jack. The biggest disappointment comes at right guard in the sense of the coaching staff. Because Tevin Jenkins, to me, is our best offensive lineman. Like I don't want to say leaps and bounds. I mean, maybe selling it too much, but look at his film. Look at how nasty he is. It's what Ryan Poles described when he first got hired in that press conference of, we need people who are nasty on this offensive line, that aren't afraid to get a little dirty, that aren't afraid to stick up for the quarterback. And Tevin has that. And not only does he have that intensity, he's a really good blocker. Like, take away like any sort of nastiness or ugliness you get from an offensive lineman. He's a really good offensive guard, and he probably would be a really good tackle. I liked what I saw from him late last year at tackle. And it's like the coaches are just dead set on having this weird rotation, and like, I get holding him out when he was hurt. You don't want to, do too much, but and then the whole debacle in the preseason of like, we may trade him and we may not, and it was just this weird. He's not fully bought in, but now he is all of a sudden. I don't know. That was weird. I feel like they treated him a bit differently, maybe to test his mental fortitude, because that was one thing coming out of like, he didn't have, the mental fortitude for like practice, or he wasn't always focused. And if that was the case, I almost feel like that's a small red flag on this whole regime, because like, you do that in public. You know what I mean? Like you're doing that publicly to someone who you don't think has mental fortitude. Like I'm not saying you protect guys. I'm not going the route of like, Mitch Trubisky turning off TVs at Hallis Hall, but this guy's in his second fucking year, dude, coming off a major back surgery. Like what exactly are we doing? I'm not saying like, these are like baby birds that need to be nurtured all the time, but there has to be some level of like, helping a guy along versus just fucking throwing him to the wolves. That said, he responded wonderfully. He's been playing great at guard, so maybe that is what he needed, but it felt like, I don't know, it felt a little weird. And then coupling that with the rotation and just everything that came with it that was strange to me.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything, honestly. I guess the biggest disappointment, I think that is a very fair question, is sort of what exactly was the plan in the offseason. And, again, it's tough because they were hamstrung by salary cap issues. Obviously, we know that. So maybe it did limit exactly what they could do. But, like, you get a little concerned about when they're bringing in, some of the guys they brought in not necessarily perform. Like Michael Schofield was an absolute disaster. That was just a very bad signing, and it sort of makes you question it. And to your credit on the coaching staff itself, I haven't liked at all, and I sort of think we may be able to just sort of group in this as just one conversation, and instead of maybe even going position by position, because I really do think a lot of it is sort of tied together. It took a long time to get Cole Kmet involved in this offense. Just looking at the tight ends, I'm not too worried about Trayvon Wesco or Ryan Griffin. I don't. Who cares about that element of it? But like Cole Kmet was one of your best weapons. I mean, just from the jump, just in terms of what you had, and it was something that you and I, when we were talking about how they may potentially be a playoff team, it was sort of, well, we're not as worried about the wide receiver core because, you do have Cole Kmet, who is talented. I mean, it took him 2-3 games into his third game to even get a freaking target. And then the way they use him, I'm still not a fan of it, even though he's been putting up some respectable numbers, especially against the Packers. But like, they just don't use him in the red zone. They don't use Velus Jones. They don't play Alex Leatherwood. Like, this team is so confusing to me. It's very clear they're in the process of a rebuild, but they don't act like a team that is in a rebuild. They don't use guys in ways that, to me, make sense. Like, Trestan Ebner hasn't gotten a lot. And again, I want to make this very clear. I'm not saying that just because they're a rookie draft pick or just because they're a younger guy who was a former first-round pick, they deserve opportunities. I'm not saying that. But they're just, the way they're going about it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, what good are you getting from Riley Reiff playing right tackle versus seeing what you have in Alex Leatherwood with minimal games left in the season? He missed a full month because he had mono and then had to come back from that. You only have a limited time to really see what you have. And if he is an answer at right tackle, boom, takes off one more need. If Velus Jones can play offense as some sort of offensive weapon, boom. Maybe you can instead of drafting a wide receiver at the end of the second round, you can now maybe push that to the fourth round if there's a guy who fell that you like, or maybe you can sign someone for, you don't have to prioritize it as much because you do have something to pair with Chase Claypool, a guy who you gave up a very high second round pick for. Darnell Mooney, who's now going to be coming back from injury, and then Cole Kmet, right? If Velus Jones fits that need, boom, you can work around that a little bit more. We don't know what he can do because they just refuse to play him on offense.
Yeah, well, and Jackie, a guy that you neglected to name, or maybe you just named it at the end, but just throughout it was the guy that really jumps out to me is N'Keal Harry.
Yes.
I mean, it's not, and this is to your point as well. It's not to say these guys are like world beaters or blue chip prospects, but in the case of some of these guys, you can't sit here and tell me that Dante Pettis deserves more reps than N'Keal Harry. Like you have N'Keal Harry as inactive. He comes back off of the inactive list, or you activate him. I don't know what the right terminology there is because he wasn't hurt. It wasn't like an IR thing. You put him back on the active roster, and he makes a great play. And that's not to say that he would make that play every single time, but it's like even that prototype of a receiver is something that I want surrounding Justin right now. Because again, like, what does Dante Pettis do? He's a solid return guy. You can't knock him there. He's a solid gunner. So like special teams wise, I get it. But what is special teams doing for us this year? Like, no, and it's no offense to that third of the ball. I know we neglect them pretty much every podcast, but you think of like, really good teams, that's usually like the icing on the cake of like a playoff team. It's like they have a really good special team. We're rebuilding, dude. I don't give a fuck about special teams. Put whoever out there at gunner. Like, sell a ticket to the guy at the 50-yard line and let him play gunner for a play, for all I give a fuck. Like, we have 3 wins. Like, get these guys out there and see what they can do. And like, I think that's like your ultimate point is like, and that's why I wanted to reiterate. It's not to say these dudes, would make the team better or anything else. Or it would result in more wins, or we'd be a playoff team. No one's saying anything like that. The point is these guys are young and these reps matter. Yeah. So just get them out there and you can wipe your hands clean even sooner if they're not that good. But like, now looking at the running, like you use Treston Ebner, I think he's been bad this year. He's just flat out like he's not the guy that we thought we were getting on tape. Granted, he's a 6th-round pick, so take that as you will. But he looked like someone at the very least that could be a gadget guy, and he just has not looked that way in a Bears uniform. But he's probably going to be on the active roster next year because we barely use him. And it's like, well, we'll give him more of a shot. David Montgomery is probably gone in this scenario that I'm painting. So let's see what he's got. Why? When we can just play him this year, realize what he is, you know what I mean? And then and cut him or get him on the practice squad, something. And I feel that way about a lot. Like the same thing with Velus Jones, like you're saying, like, and which to me, maybe is a good segue into Luke Getsy, or maybe we got to talk a little bit more specific receiver, but Velus Jones, for all his faults, could do some pretty good things on a football field. And that sort of leads me into Luke, like my disappointment of Luke Getsy, of just like sometimes a lack of creativity that comes from this offense when you have, one of the most explosive players in the league in Justin Fields and different skill sets around him. And again, it's not to say that these guys are, I think we have one of the worst, if not, well, probably not the worst receiving core. I think the Giants probably have that. Potentially even the Patriots maybe. Have, there's a couple of teams that are worse.
There's some teams in the mix. There's some teams in the mix.
We're bottom 3rd easily. Like we're probably bottom 5, bottom 4. But just like the prototypes that are around, you already talked about Cole Kmet. Like you could be using these guys a little bit differently. Instead, you're fucking trotting EQ out there to try to make, to try to have Justin make a timing throw to him, and he can't run the route right.
Right. And it's more of like an opportunity thing. Like we haven't even seen them take shots to Cole Kmet in the red zone. So we don't know if that's the proper way to use him or not. Maybe he's just not good in the red zone. But like N'Keal Harry, you're absolutely, the thing that bothers me the most about N'Keal Harry, Frank, is not that they gave up a 7th-round pick. You did, though. You did give up an asset. Who cares? 7th-round pick, whatever. Although Brock Purdy was a 7th-round pick. That's all I'm saying. But like it's not like he had done anything in any, and trust me, if he had done something, Bears fans would let you know about it too. He hadn't done anything, in my opinion, in any of the games he was active where it was like, how is this guy on a football field? Like he was making some pretty solid play, and we're kind of getting excited. And then Byron Pringle comes back from off the IR, and boom, he's thrown right in there and does nothing. Like, yeah, he had a really, really good catch for a touchdown, but after that, what? He hasn't done jack shit. That's probably, I would argue, out of all of the wide receivers, and I'm not really going to throw Chase Claypool in there quite yet because going into the year, we didn't even know he was going to be on the team, right? So, he still has time to build chemistry with Justin Fields, who did miss a game, obviously missed that Jets game. Maybe a full offseason will really sort of bring everything together. But I mean, just from the start, from the jump, I would argue Byron Pringle, to me specifically, maybe you feel the same, is by far the biggest disappointment for this receiver group. Because you look at just the signing, I thought was good. And I know people didn't love the signing, but he had a very, very strong season last year in Kansas City. His best season by far. And I thought he could bring a little different element to this Bears offense. I mean, Equanimeous St. Brown, I don't think you and I were really ever that big on a guy like that because he didn't do anything in Green Bay. N'Keal Harry was a 7th round. I think we were interested, but I don't think you and I really expected like 1,000-yard season or 10 plus touchdowns or anything. I mean, maybe you could argue Velus Jones, but I'm kind of looking strictly from the free agent class. I think Byron Pringle is up there as one of the most disappointing signings.
On offense, sure. There's a few defensive.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get to this. But the original, when you originally posed the question, I thought you were asking just the most disappointing receiver this year. For me, that's been Darnell Mooney.
Yes, I meant sorry, I should have clarified. New addition to the team.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say Lucas Patrick because he's just the injury. I mean, even when he was playing guard, he was playing with the cast on, so maybe that's why he sucked at guard too. But yeah, I would say Byron Pringle. But before we get to defense, I mean, I think we do have to touch on Darnell Mooney a little bit. We were the guys that said like we don't think he's a true number one. So it's hard for me to have like a ton of disappointment in him.
Dude, he was terrible. Come on, let's cut the shit. I'm not saying like you weren't. I'm just saying, you know, we don't have to explain why we said he wasn't a number one receiver.
Oh, no,
I mean, you look at this season, you think about all the offseason talk we heard about Justin, the chemistry, this, that, the preseason game that we saw against the Browns when he's facing corners 7, 8, and 9. And you just think about the hype that people were trading for in fantasy and dynasty. Dude, he had a terrible season. I mean, you can talk about the yardage in some of the games against like the Giants and the Commanders and, you know, the Cowboy. No. This was an unacceptable season. 40 catches, 493 yards. 2 touchdowns in 11 games? Come on.
Listen, Jackie,
thank you.
I get it. And that's what I was getting to. But what I was going to say was we didn't ever think he was a number one. But at the very least, we thought like the fantasy community could be fooled because of the opportunities that he would get, and he'd have like 1,200 yards, 5-6 touchdowns, 80, 90 receptions. And even before the injury, you're like, this guy just isn't even putting up empty stats. Or, I mean, even when Justin started to really bring it along after the first 3-4 weeks, and there were like times where Darnell just absolutely disappeared to a point where there were times where, you know, usually like your number one gets taken out after like a 60, 70 yard reception because he needs to, you know, take a breather for a play or two. And it was because he couldn't block as well as EQ and Pettis. And then, you know, so it's like, God, is that really what it's come to? But now, like so the disappointment for me, and this is what I was getting at, was I don't even know if he's a number two, Jack, to be completely honest with you, because my mindset going in was like, if we get any number one, get like Stephon Diggs, granted that's a top 5, even get like a top 10 type of guy, you know what I mean? And you slot Darnell as the number 2, whether you put him in the slot or the Y. That's a good receiver. And I'm not saying he's a bad receiver, but I'm just saying, like, he doesn't even give me like Johnny Knox vibes. Like, he doesn't give me that like explode. Like, I'm struggling to think of like, what does he do elite? And you know, so I feel like as a number 2, you have to do something. I don't know if he's the greatest route runner. He has really good straight line speed, but he wasn't really utilized that way this year. And not for nothing, like that was how Nagy utilized him, was he was the deep threat. And he was really good at that. And that's why I thought he could be the Deshaun Jackson number 2 type of guy. Just fucking run goes and stretch that safety out. You know what I mean? And
so that brings up a good point, Frank, that I have sort of noticed, and I don't know if we've really touched on it too much. I do wonder if maybe there's, and I guess we can kind of go into Luke Getsy at this point, because I think it all sort of ties together. I just don't know if he is using his personnel correctly. There aren't a lot of guys who look. It just feels like there's too many guys playing in the wrong position. Like, if you think about, and it worked. You know, let's be very clear. It did work. But Equanimeous St. Brown is your deep threat. I mean, he's burning Jari Alexander, which is still hilarious. But like, the guy can't catch a football. I mean, even when he catches it, he looks like he's like fucking literally trying his hardest just not drop it. And you think about how he was using it, just doesn't seem like he can get very creative at times. And not really anyone looks fast in this offense. Like, even Velus Jones, I don't understand how they haven't thrown one. I guess they did. They did throw one bomb to Velus Jones, and he caught it. Do it again. We haven't seen him just just say, fuck it, run as fast as you can, Justin, throw it as far as you can, and we'll see what happens. No, he's only being relegated to jet sweeps. And then the bubble screen throws and the pitch tosses from the shotgun for 2 yards. Like, I just don't know if people were used correctly this year. Even a guy like Chase Claypool, who you and I, the first play of the Packers game, he just throws it out. There's no blocker. It's not even a bubble screen. It's literally just a quick toss to the right. And he gets tackled. And it's like, what are we doing? What is the game plan? And, hopefully as Luke Getsy develops as a play caller, and guys are getting more into the playbook overall. Again, talked about it with Matt Nagy. We joked, obviously, with hindsight about the 202 stuff. But again, when he gets more personnel, maybe he's able to do some more things. But yeah, I mean, as much credit as we gave him last year for developing Justin Fields, I mean, you think if they had Trevor Lawrence on this team, I don't think they're scoring 30 points a game in that little window they had where the offense was just clicking. I also don't think Trevor Lawrence is getting elevated to the point where he's at right now, where he's playing at right now. And I don't know how much Jaguars football our listeners watch. I only do strictly for fantasy purposes. Shout out Trevor Lawrence getting me into the playoffs. I just don't you think about how much Justin has had to create in this offense on an unscripted play. Luke Getsy doesn't deserve credit for that happening. That's all Justin Fields. But he has had those plays where it's like, That's a great play call. That is an absolute fucking great play. We've had that happen. But there's just too much in between where it's like, dude, what the fuck was that? You think about all the goal line stands where they take a shot on first down and then they run the ball for 2 yards on second down, and now you're stuck on third and long. And it's like, what are we doing? So I think there's just been too much of that. Maybe personnel hasn't been used correctly. What do you think about that?
I totally agree there, to a point where I don't feel the need to add anything to the personnel usage. I think the other thing as well, and we've touched on the annoyance, and I don't know if this is just a Luke Getsy thing. This could be a full staff or full regime thing of working players in so slow.
Yes.
Whether it's off injury, and then we saw it with Claypool after the trade. But it's also a thing. A report came out over, I believe, the weekend that Chase Claypool still doesn't know the offense. He's still learning the playbook, and maybe it'll come out that it's more on Claypool than anybody else. It's more his fault. But as it stands, that's hard for me to believe because, Jack, if you remember the last game that we played, and this has been, I mean, we're in double-digit weeks here, and this has been happening all year where people are lining up incorrectly. Yes. That's a coaching mishap. That's on no one else but the coach. You can't sit here and tell me the whole fucking receiver corps, because that was Darnell included. And for our disappointment with that, he knew the plays. Him and Justin had been working. I mean, they probably fucking lived together in the offseason to get reps in, like they were doing so much. And it's like, what are we doing here? So I see a report like that, and I'm like, I don't know if things are just too complex sometimes, or what exactly is happening there. But that to me is a reflection of coaching. And we know that Luke Getsy, or at least it was told to us, that Eberflus is the CEO of this team. So what he's going to do is give autonomy to the coordinators. Granted, he's going to have his hand in with planning and things like that. Potentially even certain play calls. Every head coach has that. But for the most part, these coaches have autonomy to game plan, to call plays, to draw up plays, to be as unique and creative as they want to be. And that leads me looking at Luke Getsy, what exactly is happening here? Because we've seen, again, and I'm not saying that Chase Claypool is anywhere near the athlete or the player that Christian McCaffrey is. But they got traded in a very comparable amount of time to get to their new team. It was about 2 days before that game. And Christian McCaffrey just fits in and goes. And that's not a testament to me to Christian McCaffrey. We know what his physical abilities are. But that's a testament of good coaching. We know what, we as a team and as a staff know what this guy can do. We are going to immediately play to his strengths. Even if it means not using our verbiage and just saying, Christian, you're running in between the right guard and right tackle this play. Do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Simple. Like that's what I mean. Like there has to be a point in which you are catering to you, and that's an extreme example. But again, we talked about it with Velus Jones. We talked about it with just the different reps and things that were happening with EQ and Pettis out there when you had N'Keal Harry, and the what it seems like is the misusage of Cole Kmet at times. And we haven't really touched on the running backs all that much either. But I mean, when is the last time that a running back caught a pass? I feel like it's very far and few between when I think both Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery are good pass catchers. They haven't utilized them at all in the pass game. And that's where the disappointment. And I will say, Jack, this is my last thing really on the offense, and you can continue to go or we can move to defense. But I think that the disappointment that we're expressing isn't to say that Getsy has been a failure. He's been like a B. This has been a B level hiring to me, which is great. Because he's been at the very least for the most part competent, doing common sense things, using Justin to his ability, and he deserves a lot of credit for the development of Justin. Granted, there's individual progress there with Justin himself, but coaches should always get credit as well.
Agreed.
Where the disappointment arises is that people were talking about him even as of like week 8 of like, well, some of the players like, well, we only got half a season left with him before he gets hired on, and before the year, like some Packers personnel, Aaron Rodgers, other people around the Packers, media, and even people who weren't in the Pack, like this guy may be one of those hot hires in a year or two, and it's like, let's slow down. He's been good overall, but he is. If anyone hires him, I'm okay with that. Like it's not, it's not going to be the damning loss, like losing Arthur Smith for a Tennessee offense or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be that.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone earlier, a Packers friend earlier today, and he was like saying the same thing about maybe Luke Getsy gets hired, and I was just like, after the failures that Nathaniel Hackett has had in Denver, I don't know how you look at this season and be like, oh yeah, we need to have Luke Getsy come in and be our play caller. Like I don't see that happening at all. I would be shocked if it did, and if it does, fine. Like it's not going to be the biggest loss, because you're right. That's something we've been talking about a ton, is getting David Montgomery used, and I think it just goes back to usage. I would argue David Montgomery has been a disappointment this season, just in the sense that this is a run-heavy offense, and not once this year were we like blown away, or did he look like a rejuvenated player like Eddie Jackson, like that type of rebound we did not see from David Montgomery. I don't. You can't pay him. You can't. I understand your concerns about pass blocking. I get it, Frank. No, come on.
Oh, I'm right there with you. And that was I had made that statement when the offensive line looked really bad, and they've come along the last couple of weeks. So like I'm less concerned about that. But I've always been in the camp that like some Bears fans overrated David Montgomery in the first place. Like when did he ever really look? Maybe fringe top 10 for a year, but that just shows you like what's happening with running backs in general.
Yeah.
He doesn't look any different to me looking around to like any other average. Like, does he look any different than like a Raheem Mostert? You know what I mean?
You think about teams that have two, like Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Give me both of them before you give me David Montgomery.
Well, and that's what I mean. That's not to say that he's bad. I can see him getting like if Saquon leaves, he goes to Giants and does this. But it's like he's had 1,000 yards once.
Well, Frank,
Granted, I do think he's been Say that again.
No, I was just gonna say the whole thing was Bears fans were excited to see him because it was a run-heavy offense. That was Luke Getsy. That's what he wanted to do, coming from a guy who refused to run the football. And that's why everyone was like, all right, let's see what David Montgomery could do. And it was just more of the same. It's what we've always seen from him.
And then the thing is, too, is he just has never, since last year, let's just be honest, Jack, since the middle of last year when he got hurt and Khalil Herbert got his chance, he has not looked like the best running back in that running back room.
No, not at all. He looked, it was like he was the clear backup. And yet again, Luke Getsy kept rolling him out there as on first and second down, and like would go through these weird rotations with Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery. And I understand wanting to keep running backs fresh, but like dude, come on, get the best players on the field and fucking play them. I think that's the overall. That's probably the best way to sum up my frustrations with Luke Getsy this year. Is he just refuses to get and again, I'm not saying Velus Jones is better than Dante Pettis. I'm just saying we have no fucking idea if that's the case because we haven't seen it at all. And again, they have more information. They see it in practice, things like that. But like, dude, it's the same thing with when you brought up Tevin Jenkins earlier. It's like the whole thing with Tevin Jenkins was while he was, Wednesday practices were rough. It's like, who fucking cares, man? Like, you guys are in a rebuild. We have 3 wins. You're the fucking right now 3rd selection in the draft. Like, who cares about practices, man? Like, let's just see if they're the most talented player, get them on the field. And I don't know why we're still seeing Dante Pettis. I don't know why we're still seeing Byron Pringle. I don't understand what's going on right now. And that needs to change in the next 4 weeks. I need to see something different. I need to. But I don't think we will.
I don't think we will either. I think the biggest thing that I need to see, like need to see, and it's not me being greedy with Justin like I talked about because he surpassed all my other expectations for the year. Claypool has to have a big game or two. Like there has to be. You can't spend that type of pick and say, well, wait till next year. Fuck that, because we could have picked a receiver with that pick. And again, I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's Getsy. Something's got to get. I need at least one. I need at least 100-yard, couple touchdowns, something. You got to give me something, because he doesn't look any different than any other fucking receiver in this offense. And you don't pay a high second, damn near a first, because Miami lost their first without that. But Jackie, I know we're going to talk defense. How much do we? I mean, just overall, they've been bad. So to like single people out here.
I mean, because I think disappointment is the key word. And Frank, I'm going to be real with you. I think there are a few guys who we can target. If we want to start on the defensive line, I mean, you go right to Trevis Gipson, Al-Quadin Muhammad, those 2 guys. I mean, like, what Dominique Robinson is a different case. He's a private, I was getting a little ahead of myself, getting upset about him. He was a 5th-round pick, but he showed flashes at the beginning of the season, and I got excited about that. But I mean, you look at the 2 main guys, Trevis Gipson and Al-Quadin Muhammad. I swear to God, has he made a single play this season?
And I can't recall. I'm sure he made one early when the defense was looking okay, but.
I mean, you think about it. I was excited for him specifically just because of what I'd seen him do in Indianapolis. And obviously with Matt Eberflus coming from Indiana, this was his guy.
But then, Jack, do you remember that you sent me this article? I vividly remember it when Al-Quadin Muhammad was like, Matt gave me the call. I was going to go elsewhere. Or what did he say? I was going to go back to the Colts, but Matt gave me the call.
Yeah.
And I'm here now. And we were like, fuck yeah, that's right.
We're like,
and then he's just...
Let's see.
Can I say really?
Go ahead. I'm just going to look at the stats while you're talking.
So Al-Quadin Muhammad, Nick Morrow, Matt Adams, and even to a degree Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon, those are more reflections of Ryan Poles to me at this point, of like of talent evaluation. Granted, those free agents that I just listed, those are like plug and play. Let's hope we string them along for the year. If they have a big year, we found something. Maybe we're looking for our Akeem Hicks.
Maybe some guys just need a chance to play.
Yeah, exactly. They're 1-year deal guys, so it's not the worst of it, but that still is a reflection of the GM. I mean, because you think of some of the guys that Ryan Pace signed on those 1-year deals. Some of them commanded multi-year deals after that because they played really well. I mean, Akeem Hicks was one of them. If you remember, who was we had a defensive end, not an outside linebacker that was rushing the pass and more of a run stopper, and we signed him to like a 2 or 3 year who was really, really good. I'm blanking on who it was now. But Pace sort of had those signings. Again, I'm willing to throw that away though, because we had limited resources. So I totally get it. But again, you would like to hit on something. And as it stands, I don't think he hit on anything outside of, well, Justin Jones is probably your hit.
Yeah.
Outside of that,
he's a hit.
Like the other guys who performed well, Eddie
Jack
Jackson was already here. okay, I guess we can count Jack Sanborn, but he's an undrafted guy. Like, if that was really your guy, even late, you would have taken him over someone like Dominique Robinson, even in the 5th or 6th. That wouldn't have been a reach. People had him. I saw him going in the 5th in some mock drafts. But Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson, who was starting to come along, these guys were already here. And then Robert Quinn wasn't doing great things, but he was commanding, double teams. Roquan had a big game or two. Those guys were here already. And it's like that, I hate to keep harkening back to this, and people are going to get fucking sick of me until we get a bona fide receiver. We didn't pick George Pickens or Alec Pierce to get Kyler Gordon, who had just been picked on since week 2. Week 1 didn't count in terms of anything like that because it was a fucking monsoon against the Niners. But that Packers game, I mean, you say what you will about Aaron Rodgers. I get it. He's the things that are coming out about him are comical at best, crazy at worst. But he's not someone that's just not watching film and I'm just going to test the rookie for no reason. He wasn't testing fucking Sauce Gardner out there. You know what I mean? He looked at Kyler Gordon like he was fucking food. And then everyone else saw that and were like, maybe he is food. And Kyler did nothing to disprove that except for have one good game against, well, really a couple good plays against the Patriots. And it's like, oh God, that's such a bad reflection of Ryan Poles thus far.
You think of that play though, on the Falcons game when Drake London caught that touchdown and Kyler Gordon just sort of gave up.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what the hell was that? Like that. But Frank, like going back to the defensive line real quick. Al-Qadim Muhammad, I don't want people to think we were just getting ahead of ourselves. Last season as a full-time player. So in 2020, he started 0 games. He played in all 16, didn't start a single game. 2021, he got his first opportunity in 17 games started. He had a forced fumble, 6 sacks, 48 tackles, an important 2 stats, 7 tackles for loss, 13 quarterback hits. This year, in 9 starts, he's played in 12 games, so he hasn't even been the starter. Not a great sign. He's had 1 forced fumble, 1 sack, 23 tackles, 0 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits.
And we can pull up his usage too. He's been in the 90% plus every fucking week.
And then you look at a guy like Travis Gibson and maybe for Travis the main thing is scheme fit because he was drafted to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. Last year we were really excited for him coming into this year because he had 7 sacks, he had 7 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hits. This year 2 sacks, 21 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 8 quarterback hits. So the pressure is still there, but he's not making any plays. He had 5 forced fumbles last year. Frank, if I were to ask you how many he has this year, how many would you say?
0. Yeah, it feels that way.
He's just not making any plays, man.
I know. And you know what, though, Jack? And I'm not saying you were making an excuse for him. But with all the rhetoric going in, switching back to a 4-3 of like, well, not like, I remember Robert Quinn going on podcasts. I want to say it was Travis Gibson as well. Unless I'm misremembering, but I could have swore it was him. And they're like, yeah, we just get to pin our ears back now in this Eberflus defense. Like, we're not worried about, because the biggest critique sometimes of the Fangio was like, the Fangio defense, and then even Sean Desai was like, well, we get asked to drop back a little bit. Remember, we would be so pissed when Khalil Mack was back there dropping back. And Robert Quinn sometimes like, dude, just have them rush the passer. Like, well, what are we doing? And, they were like, we don't have to do that. It's not our responsibility anymore. We're not worried about that at all. It's because they were sort of explaining like these are zone reads sometimes. If we feel like there is going to be a route, we have the option to like drop back into coverage, or we're coached to drop back into coverage when we see certain things. And they're like, well, we just get to pin our ears back now. It's not much different. All it is going from, we're in a stance now versus us standing up. There's no difference at all. So then this is what they were saying.
Right.
So like, even that is hard for me to be like, yeah, like there is a switch, because they were all saying it's playing to their strengths now. And,
he's regressed statistically and just overall play.
And but you know what though, Jack? And it's not even statistics for me. Especially with defensive players, that can be very misleading. just watch the games. Like, what impact
Zero.
are they having? Because if you remember, like, people tried to do that back in the day with Julius Peppers. It was like year 2 or 3 ago. It's like, well, he's not getting the sacks, but like he led the league in like pressures and hurries and quarterback hits, and it's like they're just getting the ball off. Like, what the fuck can he do? He can't make the quarterback hold the ball to let him sack him, but he's making impact plays. There hasn't been any of that, dude. Like, none of it at all, to a point where the defensive line is so bad. You think of the Packers game, they've made the secondary look fucking good because Rodgers had to hold the ball for 6 seconds until someone got open.
Yeah, I'm genuinely concerned about how many holes have opened up on this defense, because I didn't think it would be this much of an issue. I'm going to be honest with you, but I mean, you think of the front seven, you maybe have 2 starters next year, right now, in the front seven.
Justin Jones
and Sanborn. I mean, you can plug and play guys. You can, Travis Gibson will he's still on a cheap contract, so he could start. He absolutely should not be your starter. You get Will Anderson, or Jalen Carter from Georgia. Boom, you got a couple starters on the defensive line, or you got a starter on the defensive line. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm not going to get into Nicholas Morrow or Matt Adams too much. I expected them to be better because Matt Eberflus at least knew Matt Adams and Al-Qadim Muhammad. I think their play has just been very disappointing overall. But, if you look in the back four, Eddie Jackson, I thought rebounded well. Nothing really disappointing there. Jaquan Brisker, I have nothing to say about him right now. I thought it's been a good rookie season. Kyler Gordon, man. And, Frank, I'm going to say this, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. Jalen Johnson, to me, is the Darnell Mooney of the defense.
That's a really fair comparison.
I mean, a guy who was pumped up, we thought could be the number 1 guy. They had to prove it to us, though. And I think he's had a solid season, but I mean, and we'll see. He's still developing. He's still a younger player, but
right.
He didn't turn into the shutdown corner that I think we expected him to be in this team.
This was year 2 for Johnson, or 3?
Right? This is year 3. He was drafted in 2020.
So, I mean, I've hearkened back to Kyle Fuller a few times.
Yes.
But I've mainly made that comparison for Kyler Gordon, giving him the benefit of the doubt, saying, hey, Fuller fucking sucked for the first year, and he got it turned around. But maybe we need to do that with Jalen Johnson as well, because if you remember, and maybe a lot of people don't remember this, Fuller got his 5th-year option declined.
Yep.
He balled out his 4th year, and then we matched that offer from the Packers because he was a restricted free agent. And next year is going to be critical for Jalen Johnson, because I don't like, as much as we need another corner, especially if they're going to continue to play Kyler as the nickel. I don't think they're going to draft a corner high. You may get mid-round picks, 4th, 5th to add depth there. But the other holes I think are more important right now. And they were more important last year too, which is my disappointment with Poles. But it's going to be the same situation next year. They have to run it right back. Jack, if we pick a fucking corner in the first 2 rounds, I may be out on Ryan Poles that quick. I swear to God, like there's absolutely no way. Even with it being a hole, because we conceded last year that it was a hole. But again, I know I keep going to Poles, but it's like, how do you evaluate Kyler Gordon higher than George Pickens, just talent-wise?
Yeah, that is a genuine concern. But again, I think the idea was, okay, we don't know if Justin Fields is our quarterback. We want to see what he can do. And granted, it may have been easier to evaluate him with an actual NFL wide receiver, which I think they realized and traded for Chase Claypool. I think the thought was, okay, let's solve the secondary because we think that we have the least amount of holes there. And then next offseason, when we can spend money, we can, we'll have our 1st round pick, we can do this and that. It's the only logical thing to me right now, because, and Frank, to be fair, the secondary really has not been the problem. on defense. And again, there really isn't the problem on defense because it just doesn't matter this year. However, the Bears have the least on. They're 32nd in sacks. They only have 16 this season, or 16 this season.
That is so bad.
And you think, okay, well, and I know it's not a great number in terms of just like identifying a defense, but in terms of interceptions, they're middle of the pack. They have 9 interceptions. They've given up 16 passing touchdowns. So, or maybe that's 16 total touchdowns. Might be 16 total. So I don't think the secondary is really, as disappointed as we have been in Kyler Gordon specifically. I don't think that's the problem. They need a pass rush.
I agree.
And that will help things in the secondary, as we've seen many times before. You think about that Packers game, and the secondary obviously played very well. But, goddamn, did anyone get close to Rodgers in that game? No. Because the pass rush sucks. There's nothing going on, and it's been that way for the last, 5 weeks or so? There's just been nothing. And it's, so if Ryan Poles drafts a secondary player with one of those first 3 picks, I will be extremely upset.
To me, that'll be telling of what his philosophy is. Because there have been GMs in the past that think the opposite way, that the secondary makes the defensive line and not the other way around, which to me is
especially coming from him. Because he's been talking about the line, he wants to be strong up front in the trenches. That's who he is. He's an former offensive lineman, and he just didn't address it this year. And again, Justin Jones was solid, but Justin Jones wasn't even playing A, if you remember Larry Ogunjobi.
Yeah.
So who knows?
And it's it's but again, the thing that me and you touched on, and this is not hindsight, we said this when we reacted to these picks, when we put those videos out, that you had to absolutely crush that cornerback and safety pick out of the ballpark. And you kind of got them fucking flipped, because I'd rather have the corner be really good and the safety be bad, to be quite honest with you, because safeties don't really fucking matter. And I like Jaquan Brister. He's been playing well. I'd rather have that situation flipped, because you can move on from a safety very quick and find someone serviceable in free agency or another, or another draft pick. It's not easy to find corners, and you had to hit on that pick with the offensive talent that was on the board then, because Pickens and Pierce look really fucking good.
It's just a different philosophy that you and I both had. And Frank, I'm going to be honest with you. I would be less upset if they had drafted a pass rusher in the second round. If they drafted a linebacker maybe that's not true. Maybe that's not necessarily true. But
I agree with you. No, I agree, because and again, I don't want to change history here. We weren't upset with the corner. It didn't matter what the name was. We weren't upset with the corner, because that's a very important position in a pass heavy league. Where we were really fucking pissed was the safety.
I was probably more upset on that pick than you were, I think.
The corner?
The corner, yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't. I knew we were going to pick a corner early. I just had to hunch, because, it was such a big hole last year. It was Jalen Johnson in a fucking black hole on the other side. It was awful. It was a cardboard box. It was the safety pick that got me, because it's like, what? That's like a luxury pick, to pick a talented safety. That's like a cherry on top. Let's just, final piece of the defense type of pick, and we just weren't there.
Well, and Frank, I think what the upsetting thing is so the 7th pick, they had the 7th pick in the second round, Kyler Gordon goes. 2 picks later, Kenneth Walker goes. And I'm not saying the Bears would be a lot better with Kenneth Walker. It'd be nice to have, right? Him and Herbert together, but again, you had David Montgomery, so it is what it is.
But Jack, I had said that last week, and that's why I told you, I'm not even opposed to getting a second or third round running back. We need explosion from somewhere.
Yeah.
The only explosive weapon we have on this team is Justin Fields.
Well, and so this is the thing that was upsetting. Like okay, they take a corner, those wide receivers are still on the board, right? Wan'Dale Robinson goes, then John Mechie goes, and you and I are like, okay, all right, and then some other defensive guys go, and you get to pick 16. George Pickens, Alec Pierce, Sky Moore, at the time, obviously very high on Sky Moore. But like, we're like, oh my god, they drafted the wrong receivers. Let's get one of these guys, and then a safety, and I think we had just done a video because I remember I was on my honeymoon when the draft was happening. I was in Mexico, and right before we left, we did videos on positions that made sense for the Bears to draft early on, and it was like. Yeah, and granted, you said corner, but in terms of how I had structured it, what positions mattered, like corner and safety were like at the absolute fucking bottom, like right next to running back. I was distraught. And then of course you see George Pickens and Alec Pierce, and the blow was softened because Alec Pierce went to the Colts, and I was like, oh, all right, at least one of my teams drafted him. That's fine. But man, fuck, if they would have drafted George, watch what he's fucking doing.
I mean, Jack, if that's me, I would have taken both of them. Why would you not want a wide receiver room of – because I feel like we've talked as if it was one or the other. I told you, we were texting as that was happening. I was like, I want both of them. I didn't think Pickens was going to make it to the second round. Pierce could have gone second, third. He was sort of – but why not have both? Then you have a room of Pickens. Who cares who your number one is? You have a room now. Pickens, Pierce – and Mooney.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah, and then maybe you don't trade the 33rd overall pick, 34th overall pick for Chase Claypool.
You may not have the 33rd pick at that point. I would assume you win a few more ball games with that receiving core.
Maybe.
Because the thing is, like you said, it's not like we picked a productive interior lineman. That's like, okay, he's good, he's above average. Maybe you can get greedy and ask for the weapon, but we've been doing well. We picked a corner who gets fucking picked on every week. Like it's not like he's being productive at his position. That's the problem.
It wasn't a lock. It was not a lock pick, and I think that's where I'm struggling. Jaquan Brisker, honestly, like I think he's a better player, but position wise, it's not as valuable. That's where I'm struggling right now because Jaquan Brisker. You think of that interception he had, and I totally forgot about it until I watched the Bears posted their during the bye week. They had their little highlights, and he just had that one-handed pick. I think it was the Patriots game. Yeah, it was the Patriots game where Mac Jones threw it, and he fucking flies in one-handed interception. I mean, it's incredible. Like that is we have seen nothing like that from Kyler Gordon. He's made some nice tackles. I'll give him that. But We'll just have to see. Frank, let's wrap up real quick on because I think we've talked about polls enough. Is there anything Eberflus wise, Alan Williams wise? Because we're kind of sort of in the same range of where we were for the offense.
It's hard for me for Alan Williams before they traded Roquan and before they traded Robert Quinn. He was doing a lot of really good things.
Yeah.
And injuries happened, trades happened. It's tough. I would bring him back. I don't think there's any reason to flat out fire the guy, and you hope to have more talent next year and he gets back to blitzing more. But again, like I know you've called for it. That's something that we disagree on. Like he tried it. I don't know if it was the Packers game or who it was. Maybe it was the week before that. He tried to blitz again, like he had a full squad in there, and that they just got lit the fuck up, and he didn't do it again. It's like, I get it, dude. I know that's probably the only way we can pressure the quarterback, but that's legitimately leaving the secondary out on an island, and they're just not good enough to do that. In terms of Eberflus, it's hard. That's why I've sort of said like this feels like a regime thing to me with the working the players in and the rotation, because I don't know where that starts and ends between the coordinators and Eberflus, but I think the buck will always stop at Eberflus with things like that. That has been a huge disappointment for me. It's like valuing the Wednesday practice. That was a Tressman thing. That was a Nagy thing. Like, can we be beyond that? I know you're building something here, and you have to set a precedent when it comes to things. But it's like talent, especially game day talent, not just like raw talent that we need to see. Tevin Jenkins in particular, that's fucking talent. We saw Alex Leatherwood those 10 reps. That's clear game day tech. Get these guys out there, man. Enough of this rotation bullshit. Like, just like that has been, I think, my biggest disappointment with him. It has just been that like again, like someone I think sort of summed up culture building when you're in a new place is like sometimes these guys just make rules just to make people follow it, to see how bought in they are, or like to sort of build a culture. And I get it to a degree, but that to me is more of a college thing. Like these are grown ass men. Agreed. You think anyone's going to be mad that because Tevin Jenkins had a bad Wednesday practice and he's starting, like someone in the locker room is going to be like, man, fuck this coaching staff. Like I can't believe it. I can't, but like he fucking sucked on Wednesday, but he's balling out on Sunday. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you hear some of these stories, dude, of like, and I'm not advocating for like our players to do anything like this, but like, yeah, like, I mean, Shannon Sharp has told some of these stories like, yeah, I was so fucking hungover on Sunday, but had a fucking energy drink and I balled out. Like his teammates knew he was hungover, man. They were probably having him with him in the club. You know what I mean? Like these are grown ass men. That's the point that I'm making is like, cut it out with the trivial, you know, dumb Wednesday practice shit. Like I that has been probably the biggest red flag for me is the rotation stuff, the weird stuff with Tevin Jenkins, slowly, you know, incorporating people in. Yeah, it's that has been highly annoying. But his role as the CEO of the team, I think the staff that he's put together has been pretty good overall. I mean, the culture that he has built seems to be very strong right now. You know, the guys are clearly buying in. It's just the team doesn't have talent. So there's been more positives than negatives, but those are the negatives. Did you have anything more on Eberflus or Williams?
Oh yeah. Because rotation thing, absolutely. The conservativeness.
Yeah, you're right.
Of Matt Eberflus is really starting to irritate. Like, man, as much fun as I have made of him, Dan Campbell. You got to respect some of the gutsy to sit. Like, have we seen that at all? Like, I just want this team to be realistic about where they are. And sometimes they are. But then other times it's like 10 seconds left in the half, and they won't even fucking take a shot. They'll just kneel and take it to halftime. Like, just come on. Give me something to get excited. We've seen so much of that, and I hate the conservative nature in the NFL, especially in this era where you get flags so easily. You think of that hit on Justin Herbert on Sunday Night Football this week. Man, like that is just, come on, you get flagged for everything. Take some opportunity, take some shots, try and get pass interference calls. Go for it on fourth down. I don't love how conservative he's been so far, and I feel like as the team gets better, it's only going to get worse. I know. So that's something that I'm a little disappointed in. I was hoping to see a little bit more because Matt Eberflus seemed like that type of guy who may go for it on 4th and 2 or 4th and 5. They're on the 47 or the 50-yard line. Like maybe it'll change with personnel. You know, as your defense gets better and you can maybe trust them to get more stops and things. Maybe, but right now that's my biggest.
That's fair. I that is one thing I neglected to remember. And first of all, you owe Dan Campbell a huge apology in the offseason. It didn't have to come now. When they win a playoff game, you're going to owe him an apology is all I'm saying. But I did, there's going to become a point where, just like you said, as this team gets better, as they continue to build, and, the conservative nature of Matt Eberflus continues to rear its ugly head, we're going to have to question where he was on January 6th. That's how fucking conservative he's been, okay?
Listen, man, I'd ask all college coaches or all NFL coaches about being honest, except for Mike Tomlin, obviously.
And except for Jerry Jones, the guy's done fucking wonders.
Wrong. Yeah, nothing wrong. Not in Arkansas, baby. Yeah, I mean, overall, I hope Frank and I didn't sound too pessimistic about this season. I think overall, it met some expectations. I think some of it, I think the biggest overall arcing disappointment, Frank, I think is that the rebuild is probably going to take a little bit longer than you and I anticipated. Because I think what we originally thought was if Justin is the guy, this will be quick. This will be more of a reload as opposed to more of a rebuild. The problem is that Justin is really good, and this team is way farther behind than I think we thought. Because guys didn't work out. Unfortunately, that's the way it happens. And
yeah,
I think to an unprecedented amount too. Like, I mean, some teams you bring in guys and they sort of just have this, they get more opportunities, or they're just different setting, different team, different, whatever it is, and they rebound really quick. Bears didn't really find a lot of guys like that, unfortunately.
I know. Well, then especially, I don't think we're far away on offense, to be quite honest with you. I think we still, unless Claypool is the guy, but we still probably need an X, potentially another running back when Montgomery leaves. Defensively, every level of the defense needs an impact player.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe safety, but again, it's safety. Like what,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Let's get into our picks, and we'll wrap up this week's episode.
We have to be quick with these picks too, Jackie.
Yeah. We talk a little too much on these picks, but Thursday night, San Francisco at Seattle. Frankie, I'm going San Francisco. Especially if Brock Purdy doesn't play, maybe I'll revise my pick. But if he's playing, come on, baby, let's go. I told you they're going to beat the Tom Brady and the Bucs. You talked me out of it, so I'm upset with you. But I'm going San Fran.
And they beat the fucking brakes off of the Bucs too.
Did.
Holy shit! I'm going good. Seattle. Listen, that the Purdy kid, that shit's coming to an end. He was Mr. Irrelevant for a reason.
Indianapolis at Minnesota. Again, this is a Saturday game. And speaking of Saturday, Jeff Saturday, still rolling out Matt Ryan, baby. He's like, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah.
Whatever. Let's see how that works. I'm going Minnesota.
I mean, the whole Jeff Saturday experience has been just about as bad as we thought it was going to be, right?
Not as bad because he did get a win. So it was, I thought it'd be worse.
Yeah, that's fair. But I'm going Vikings.
Baltimore at Cleveland. I'm going Cleveland. I know Deshaun Watson has not looked very good, but he looked a little bit better this week. Baltimore has no quarterbacks left. Going Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cleveland for that reason as well. Baltimore secondary has been bad.
Yeah.
Their run defense has been good, but this may be, because just like you said, Deshaun, from the first week he was back to last week, he looked a lot better to me. And I think this is a week where maybe he can look like vintage Deshaun Watson. I'm going Browns.
Miami at Buffalo, the Saturday night game, which is just a weird phrase. I'm going Buffalo. Come on.
We're going to have a conversation about Tua in the offseason, my man.
Dude, I'll have it now. Come on. The guy is fucking terrible. Like, all these people just, I saw it happen, Frank. Someone had posted in the Bears community who name all of the quarterbacks you'd rather have than Justin Fields. He listed 4 being Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, which again, arguable, fine. Josh Allen, and I think, who am I missing? Joe Burrow. Those are the 4 guys he would take. I saw way too many people saying Tua. And this was right before the Sunday night game. I hope that opened up a lot of eyes, because it's exactly what you and I had been talking about the entire week. I just don't see it with him, man.
He's the times where he faced a good team, he just hasn't.
Pressure.
Yeah. He hasn't shown, to be that dude. I'm going the Bills, but yeah, that's going to be I think as we're going to have plenty of topics to talk about in the offseason, because we're not going to have, we're going to have to be creative, rather. That'll be one where it's like talking about people looking at the stats, like only the stats and not.
He's the most accurate quarterback in the league. Yeah.
He's wasn't he like 3 for 17 at one point last week? He was just flat out missing throw. It wasn't like drops or unlucky. He was just flat out missing throws.
Yeah. That was wild.
It was bad.
That being said, I don't know if the Bills will win as easily as I think you and I expect them to, because they've been having some issues of their own, if I'm being honest. But conversation for another day. We'll save Philly at Chicago for the end, as always. Detroit at the Jets. I'm going Detroit.
You're bought in.
More so that the Jets are just, the Mike White experience. Listen, I know he got hurt a couple times in that game, but come on, man. let's pump the brakes on the Mike White train.
Yeah, I'm going Lions as well, and it's one of those things, though. The Jets, they just remind me of the Bears so much. They can't find the quarterback. They have a good defense. Like every, once or twice a decade, they have this dominant defense where you're like, fuck yeah, they just can't figure it out at quarterback. And then you're hoping that like Kyle Orton is the guy, or you're hoping that whoever else is the dude. And it's like, they're just not.
Mike White, Kyle Orton comparison, I think, is a very fair comparison.
I think Kyle's better than him, though, because he had a couple good years in Denver.
That's kind of like the Rex, Kyle Orton thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Except Rex is probably better than Zach Wilson, though.
I will. Oh, man. Let's not open that up, please. Not right now. We'll talk about that later.
I don't know how many quarterbacks I'm taking Zach Wilson over, to be completely honest with you.
I will say Garrett Wilson would be by far the best wide receiver in Bears history. That kid is absolute stuff. Aiden Hutchinson, man, that dude.
He looks good.
How did he go second overall? Jaguars.
I don't know. I mean, well, I remember that being a weird thing. Who was it? Travon Walker? Travon Walker.
He's been fine. He's been good, but
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson were both like, everyone was like, these are the guys, and they were like, nah, we're gonna go with the guy with the high floor and like the same ceiling, like
at number one overall.
Strange.
Pittsburgh at Carolina. Oh man, I struggled with this one. I'm not gonna lie to you, Frank. I'm not gonna lie. Carolina did everything. God, I love it. They might win the NFC South. That's incredible. I'm going Carolina because
I told they were winning too.
Dude, I watched Mitch Trubisky play in that game, and come on, the guy's so bad.
Yeah,
I feel bad for him, but Carolina, come on.
If Pickett plays, I'm going with the Steelers.
Yes, I should have stipulated that.
Yeah, if Trubisky plays, I'm going with the Panthers. That's my pick.
KC at Houston, LOL. KC. What? Real quick. What the fuck was Houston doing? Rotating quarterbacks
it almost worked though.
But why? I didn't understand. What the fuck
I've never understood that. There's college coaches that have done that before, and I don't get it. It doesn't make very much sense to me. But this is a game that I think I would expect to be a little bit closer than people expect, just because I literally think the Chiefs are just going to try shit. They seem to do that against like super inferior teams. You're just like, we're just going to try things.
See what works.
Yeah.
Atlanta at New Orleans. Oh man, two teams I just really don't want to see any more of. I'm going to go Atlanta. Desmond Ritter's first start, baby. Let's see what he's got. Let's see what the kid's got.
Yeah, we're going to see why they didn't start him this year. Because there's just no way you can watch Marcus Mariota and think the guy behind him isn't better. Like, I don't. So if he's worse than him, you might be in for a long one. I don't know. I'll go Falcons as well. That was one I don't even have marked. I'm like, I don't. I was open to being swayed.
I wasn't sure. Either. Dallas at Jacksonville. Upset. Going Jacksonville. Dallas looked like ass last week. I know things like that don't always carry over, but man, Trevor Lawrence has been absolutely balling out the last few weeks. And come on. I'm going Jacksonville. Let's go.
I'm going Dallas.
Simple as that. Arizona at Denver in probably the ugliest game of the week. It's probably not going to be close.
Starting for the Cardinals?
Yes, he will be starting. Kyler Murray out for the season with the torn ACL.
Well, Russ might be out too. He got concussed, right?
It might be Colt McCoy versus Brett Rypien. That being said, I'm going Denver just defense wise. I think they can do something.
Yeah, that's where I was leaning as well. I'm going to be honest though, Jack. There's something I want to look into depending on where they end. I mean, if they reel off a few wins, it really won't matter. But if they end with like 3 or 4 wins, that may be the worst record for a top 5 defense of all time. They've given up like 15 points a game, dude. That's fucking insane.
We need Denver to win. We, as Bears fans, we need Denver.
You're right. I'm picking them logically, but I'm also rooting for them.
I'll say this. I was happy to see Russ sort of turn it around in that game last week before he got hurt. I found myself kind of rooting for him a little bit, kind of what you had said in terms of how you started to feel bad for him. I'm not going to disagree, but it was kind of nice to see him like taking some shots and just I mean, Jerry Jeudy finally back to life. Good for him. It's a great point, Frank. Great point. We need a little more of that these days. The Patriots at the Raiders. My God.
I'm going Patriots.
Yeah. I think I'm going to switch my pick. I had the Raiders, but the more I look at it,
this is going to be just
Bill
like
is going to.
It's going to be like Bill is just going to stare at him with his hood.
He's going to show him why he didn't give him the job as head coach.
Yeah, he's going to stare at Josh McDaniel and he's going to be like, hey, kid, you can't win this game. And then he's just going to lose. Like, McDaniel's going to.
Goddamn, was it funny watching Mac Jones just tell everybody how bad this offense is?
Dude, he's been cussing out every single week. He's cussed out Matt Patricia. It's been the fucking greatest thing in the world.
I don't get it. Tennessee at the Chargers. I'm going Chargers, just quarterback play, and Tennessee's sort of reeling a little bit.
Yeah, they're definitely reeling, but I feel like the Chargers follow up those performances all the time with duds. I'm going Tennessee.
Yuck.
I'm not confident either, to be honest, but
Cincinnati at Tampa Bay in a Super Bowl rematch. Super Bowl. Well, no, that's not right. Nope, they didn't play each other in the Super Bowl. Cincinnati lost to the Rams.
Yes.
And Tampa Bay beat the Chiefs.
You were a year off.
Why is Tampa Bay playing in whatever, who cares? Cincinnati, come on.
I'm going Cincy as well. This feels like a passing of the torch type of game to me, where Joey Burrow just fucking dicks down the GOAT.
Man, I love Justin Fields. Don't get me wrong, but I would have loved Joe Burrow to be the Bears quarterback.
The list that you named, there are only a select few. Joe Burrow is probably on that list at this point. I wouldn't take, not just talent wise for what the Bears have going on. I wouldn't even take Justin Herbert over Fields.
I think that's a conversation. That would be an interesting conversation. When we do our quarterback rankings next year,
dude,
and we get our boy Chris Sims, his rankings on there.
Joey B's just he's a little different, bro.
I can't wait till Chris Sims has Justin at 17 next year. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Below Derek Carr still.
That was the first thing that came to my mind, because I'm thinking of guys who you can really no longer rationally put above him. Going into this year, obviously you had to put Derek Carr over Justin.
Sure.
How could you put Tannehill or Derek Carr over
Russell
Justin
Wilson.
Fields at this
point? You think
point?
he'll put Russell Wilson over Justin Fields?
Dude, Russ has to be in the late 20s.
Yeah, but this is Chris Sims we're talking about. He had Kellen Mond ahead of Justin Fields.
That's true. But he had him. Didn't Sims have him at 18?
Who?
Someone had him at 18. Justin Fields.
No. He was in the 20s this year. He was below Trevor Lawrence at 25.
And Trevor was one ahead of him.
Yeah, 24. But I think he had Zach at 22.
He had Zach at 22. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, he's gonna fuck it up.
I like how we both remember that it was 22.
I remember. I started as the list started reeling off. My brain remembered it. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Sunday night. My God. Giants at Washington.
Hey, wait. You say my God. I'm looking forward to this fucking game. I think it's gonna be that first game they played was really fucking good.
I'm going Washington.
You kind of you got to go Washington, right? The Giants are just so depleted, dude.
Frauds. They're frauds.
But they're only fraudulent in the playoff picture.
No, in the sense that they were 6-1 and everybody talked about them they were the greatest team alive.
Of course, but what I'm saying is, forget just the 6-1 and where they're at now. What Dable has done with this fucking team is insane. Richie James is back to being their wide receiver one, dude.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones.
I would like to see Dable.
Outside of the 6-1 disappointment of where you're at now, if you would have told Giants fans going into this year you'd be playing meaningful football in the middle of December, they'd be fucking
meaningful though.
Ecstatic. Absolutely, it's meaningful. They're in the driver's seat for a playoff spot if they win this game.
So if the Bears were in their position, you'd be calling this meaningful?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Wait, no, but
that nonsense.
Well, I would say it's even more meaningful for the Bears because just like we said, I mean, look at Jalen Hurts last year, and when we described the difference between the Bears backing into the playoffs and getting the doors beaten off of them in the playoffs versus what happened with Jalen Hurts when he got the shit kicked out of him by the Bucs. That's valuable experience for your young quarterback. If we were to make it to the playoffs this year with Justin Fields, I don't give a fuck what that outcome was. That's valuable experience.
Granted, I'd rather have the second
with Daniel Jones because I don't think he has that type of talent.
I'd rather have the second overall pick.
Oh, no, I'm right there with you. But you didn't ask me what I'd rather have. You just said if we were in this position, would it be meaningful? Absolutely, it'd be meaningful. You're talking about a playoff spot.
I'd still rather have the second overall pick. Rams at Packers. We need the Rams. We need Baker to pull some Baker magic again. But that being said, the Rams are so fucking bad, man.
But their defense is good.
I'm going Green Bay. They're at home. I'm going Green Bay. We saw what happened. Hold on. We saw what happened. When the Rams came to the Midwest in December 4 years ago. What more do you need to see? This team sucks.
That was Vic Fangio. That wasn't the Midwest. That was Vic Fangio being the fucking greatest.
Are you really picking the Rams? You're really picking Baker and the Rams right now?
I'm going Baker and the Rams. I mean, dude, look at how Aaron Rodgers looked against our defense. What the fuck's he going to do against a good one?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's going to be a run-heavy game. God, these are so bad. How is this game not getting flexed out?
Next year they're starting to flex out Monday. They haven't been able to flex out Mondays. Only Sundays, right? Sunday nights?
Got it.
Now next year they're going to be able to start doing that. And they need to. Holy shit.
That might be the lowest. Well, it won't be a low watch game because Packers fans are, whatever, and it's still on the NFL. But man, give me. Goddamn though. You look at the rest of the schedule. Who would you flex out for? Whatever. Let's finish this up. I almost forgot about the team we're here to talk about.
I know. I did too.
Philly at Chicago. I don't think Frank and I need to really play coy with this one. I think we're both going Philly.
Yes, we're both going Philly. This is going to be a ugly.
I've been looking forward to Miles Sanders may rush for 300 yards in this game, which I need him to.
They also rush for 300 yards. Start both of them in your fantasy leagues, ladies and gentlemen.
That being said, this was a game I actually had circled all year because the obvious comparison is Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields. I mean, it doesn't really get any easier because I mean, even Lamar isn't really the same type of quarterback that these two are. And I would love to see Justin and Luke Getsy get a chance to see exactly how that offense works. Shout out to Nick Sirianni, man. He's my coach of the year at this point. I don't know how you go anywhere else, really. I mean, you think about what this team was expected to do versus what they've done. God damn, can we get a receiver? Can we find an AJ Brown?
Yeah.
Can we just trade for AJ Brown? I'd trade for him.
That'd be nice. I mean, I think the only angle that I'm looking at here is that Philly is ranked top 3 in pass defense. They're middle of the pack run defense, so we should be able to have some success there. I need to see Justin build off of that good passing game that he had against the
yardstick.
So it's a real
Great
yardstick. Again, I'm going to say this every fucking week until it happens, and when it happens, I'm going to ask for it to double. We need a big game from Chase Claypool. I'm not pinning it on him. I'm not just pinning it on Getsy. I get it. You didn't plan for this guy to be here, but we need a big game.
You traded the 33rd, 34th overall pick for a guy.
Yes.
You have to get a big game out of him at some point. You have.
Yeah. So I'm going to continue.
You had the bye week. It's been over a month. If he plays less than 70% of the snaps, we're going to have an issue. We're going to have a problem. Because I was getting people were talking to me about that when I was angry in like the third week he was here, and I was like, dude, he's playing 30%. We traded a fucking high second rounder for this guy. He's got to be on the field playing.
Yep, that's the biggest thing is he should be out there 90% plus. There's no.
He's your wide receiver one. Who else? Why would there be anyone? Yeah. They're treating EQ as their wide receiver one right now for some reason.
It's fucking gross. I don't know if this is a bold prediction, but I think Philly's dropping 50 on our heads.
I kind of almost hope they do. I almost hope they do because then I just want to see Justin have the ball more. I want to see them get into a shootout. I would love to see that. I don't know if it'll happen because Philly's defense is obviously a lot better than the Bears' defense. But man, this could be fuck that. This should be the Monday night game.
I mean, it could be no worse than the Monday night game they actually got.
But see what I'm saying, and I know what you were kind of thinking. Like, you hear that and you're like, well, Chicago sucks record-wise. Yeah, sure, but at least they have a fucking fun player to watch.
Right, the entertainment value. No, for sure, I agree. As I saying, it's no worse than the Monday night they got.
That being said, I'm not mad that it's a noon game.
Same. You get the ass beaten over early, and you call it a day.
Well, we'll just have to wait until next year when it's week 1 again, and we're back in Green Bay, baby, because we get to see Jordan Love versus Justin Fields.
And then fuck Steve Levy just saying the dumbest shit you ever heard.
Dude.
In Green Bay, they really like cheese. And then in Chicago, they got the deep dish.
They got the deep dish pizza. They should be best friends. Shut the fuck up,
You can't make
man.
deep dish without the cheese, right? I fucking hate saying if there's one
Yes, I love it. God damn, Frank. I love when you get in these moods. It's great. We appreciate you guys listening to the Bear With Us podcast. I'm Jack. He's Frank, as always. Depending on the outcome of the game, Frank, I'm going to be honest. It was 50-14. We're not doing a post show. If it's close and there was some entertainment value to be had, we'll absolutely get on the horn and discuss. But if not, we'll be back next week to talk a little more about the results of the Bears-Philly Eagles game, and then we'll kind of keep going from this. We're in the back half of the season. I can't believe it. I can't believe we're already here. But
I know.
Frankie, until next week, man. I'll talk to you then.
Later, Jackie. Later, everybody.